Our readings today focus on stewardship and what it means to be a good steward of the talents and the gifts that God has given us. And God is the giver of all good gifts. He's given all of us unique talents and abilities that are intended to be used for the greater good of the poor, our society. Some of us are really smart. Some of us are good looking. Some are great athletes. Some have a lot of charm. Maybe you have a great deal of empathy and you can go out to the people who are hurting and help heal them. Some are great parents, grandparents, some great students. But all of these gifts are gifts from God. They're not something we possess as our own. They are intended for us to use for the greater good of the poor and our society. And so if we look at our first reading from the prophet Amos, he talks about the opposite of what a good steward looks like. He's really commenting on the culture of his time, and a lot of the comments he makes, I think, resonate with our own time. So he describes these merchants who can't wait for the Sabbath to get over. The Sabbath is a day of rest and a day of prayer. They want to get back out into the marketplace so they can make more money. And he says that they are devaluing their currency. They're causing inflation so that they can charge more. And they're even selling the chaff of the wheat, which has no nutritional value. And he says that they're cheating on the scales. And I remember growing up, I grew up on a farm, and we would bring our grain in to the grain elevator to sell it. And they would weigh our truck when you first pulled in, and then they would weigh it again when you left, and that would determine how much grain you were actually selling. And one time when we were there, I remember I was quite young, but my dad got into a debate with the manager of the elevator because he was saying there's no possible way my truck weighs that much. And I don't really remember the outcome. Again, I was pretty young, but I remember my dad was very upset. And if you think about why, that is our annual income. That grain is the money that we have to live off of for the entire year, and it has to be the seed money for next year where we can buy more seed, we can buy gas for our tractors. Our entire livelihood depended on that measurement being accurate. And so what the prophet is saying is that the merchants are cheating on the scales. They're cheating the poor. And he says they're even buying slaves for the cost of sandals. That's how much they're taking advantage of the poor. And in our gospel reading, we see another example of a dishonest steward. So a steward in the Roman times was often the smartest and the most trustworthy of a wealthy person's slaves. But that person had power and could gain wealth, so much so that occasionally a free person would sell themselves into slavery just to gain the position of a steward with a wealthy person. But it's an administrative role, and this steward is caught in cheating, and he knows he can't do anything else. He's not capable of digging. He's not capable of going out and making a living in any other way. He is a slave, and he's not equal with the people that he's been dealing with. And so essentially, to get out of his situation, he decides, I'm going to commit a white-collar crime. He calls in the debtors, and he cuts the amount that is owed to his master for each one, trying to garner favor with the people who will eventually maybe owe him because he reduced the amount of their debt. And if we don't really pay attention, if we don't do a close reading, we can look at that and say that he's being commended for that. And in a way, that's true. The master recognizes that he's acting prudently in his own self-interest. But I think there's a couple morals to this story. If you look at the shift that the dishonest steward is making, he's been used to using people to gain things. Just like the merchants in our first reading, they're using people to gain things. But in this shift where he recognizes he's going to lose everything he has, he now starts to use things to gain people. He's going after relationships. And in a way, that's what we're called to do. We're called to use our things, our time and talent and wealth to help others and to bring them into the church so that they have the opportunity to achieve eternal life with God in heaven. But I think the other moral to this story is what Jesus says. Jesus says that he is earning the favor of other dishonest people, and he will be welcomed into their eternal dwelling place. But if we think about what is the eternal dwelling place of dishonest people, it's hell. In a way, what Jesus is saying is, yeah, they're going to welcome you in, and they're going to be happy to spend all of eternity with you in hell. And we know this because right after this parable, just a little bit later in the same chapter of Luke, Jesus goes on to tell another parable. And the parable is about the wealthy man who didn't do anything to help Lazarus, the poor man who was begging. And when they both die, the rich man is in hell and Lazarus is in heaven. And the rich man looks across the void and begs for Lazarus to dip his finger in water and just put one drop of water on his tongue. And of course, Lazarus can't because of the chasm between heaven and hell. And so Jesus is reminding us the consequences of being a dishonest steward, and he's reminding us what we are called to do with the time and talent and treasure that we've been given. And if we look in our own parish, we've got some beautiful examples of that. We've got groups that go serve at the daybreak shelter. We've got the Knights, the Men's Club, the CCW, other groups that do tremendous fundraisers to help our community, to help those who are needy in our community. We have people whose charism it is to come and pray for all of us. We have people who have the gift of empathy and the talent for healing, and they can go out and they can help all of those who are needy. And we have people who have the ability to visit the sick, the homebound, and bring Christ's presence to them. Some of us are great leaders, and we can be on the local school boards or we can be in local political office. We need great Christian voices in our community. And so using our God-given talent to help others is how we can be good and faithful servants. We're called to be faithful in the small choices we make in everyday life, honest in business, genuine in giving, and great listeners, so that we may someday be entrusted with the greater riches of God's heavenly kingdom.